Can you make your spouse the priority in your life? Do you have time for marriage? Do you have time? Because it requires time. What's up, good people? Happy Friday, and welcome to the Faith Unbuttoned podcast. I'm your host, Pastor K, and as you know, we are an extension of Never Alone Christian Center, headed up by myself and my wife, Miss Chiffon Wiley. As you already know, our goal is to be transparent and relevant to everyday life. With that said, guys, I hope that you're having a great Friday, and I hope that you've had a great week. I'm always excited about Friday, one, because I get to hang out with you guys, and two, it's the end of the work week. But I do have to go to work tomorrow by volunteering, but I'm still excited that it is Friday. I'll let you know, guys, that I love you. I'm praying for you. There's a lot going on in society, a lot happening in our country and in our communities, and with politics and with faith and religion. There's just so much going on that sometimes we get distracted and we can become stressed. And as I've been teaching on our midweek Behind the Scriptures, we fall into a state of anxiety, feeling abandoned and even angry at times. But Jesus is still Lord, and we're still rocking with him. Okay. So for the last couple of weeks, I've been last week I was doing a podcast with one of my colleagues in the work that we do, and that was a good teaching with Divorce Talk with Twyla on her show on YouTube channel. She resides in Texas. If you missed that, please take an opportunity to restream it. It's on our YouTube channel. And the weeks before that, we were talking about bringing our faith into reality, or making time for faith and taking what we believe God has done in our life and is doing in our life and making it a reality. So we completed that particular podcast series, and tonight we're moving into something similar to that, because you guys always know that I like to deal with relationships. I like to deal with marriage. I like to talk about day-to-day issues that affect us as believers and affect us just as people. And I think that this particular topic is important, and is more so driven toward the single community, or for those who have a desire to be married. And the topic is don't get married, ... if. And we're going to look at several different angles on if we should get married, if marriage is for us, and if we're married, what can we do to enhance our current marital state. Now, marriage to me represents a crowning achievement in my life. My wife and I just struck 15 years of marriage, actually a couple of days ago on March the 24th, and I still love my wife as I did the day that I first met her. Now, with that said, have there been some ups and some downs? Have there been some breakups? Yes, but I sincerely still love her just as much as I did the day that I met her. So I enjoy marriage. Now, marriage isn't for everybody. I'm just going to keep it 100 with you. I don't care what the church tells you. I don't care what you may have been taught. And when I say I don't care, I'm saying that there are various opinions out there that people feel like, well, if you're not married, then you haven't achieved anything in life, and you can't have grandkids and kids and whatever. Listen, don't listen to all that noise. Marriage isn't for everybody. Okay, just like college isn't for everybody. Some people become successful in trade. People become successful by going into the tech space. And it's no different with relationships. If the mindset is I have to get married, and if I don't, then something's wrong with me, that's the wrong mindset. Okay, but what I want to do is with this particular podcast is talk about, don't get married if these are some things that you may be dealing with or you want to take care of before you make that decision, because it is a major decision. All right. Now, I've learned a lot in my short journey of 15 years being married. And in this particular podcast, again, this series is geared towards singles, but I believe those of us who are married can gain some advice as well. And we'll have 4 different topics we want to look at, okay? I don't want to make this a long series, maybe 2 or 3 particular podcasts, but I want to take my time because I want to just toss out a few things to us If we have a desire to get married, or we're in a relationship, possibly engaged, possibly even heading toward the direction of being married, I want us to think about a few things before we make that decision, because I have seen and continue to see so many relationships and marriages falling to divorce and separation. Okay. Now, divorce, separation happens. Okay. We discussed that last week and the week before in the podcast I did with my colleague there. But also, I teach that marriage is a honorable thing. And I believe if God puts two people together, they should be able to stay together if they've been taught properly and they are both willing to manifest the word in their marriage and cause it to work based upon the word of God, doing those things that are not only spiritual, but those things that are natural. And yes, it is work. Okay? So we want to hold or grab hold to this particular topic from several different angles. Okay? I want to look at, once again, 4 different aspects of don't get married if. Don't get married if, okay? Now, I want to take our time. I want to give you all 4 of them tonight. And that's typically not what I do. Typically, I kind of give you one, give you a couple of thoughts behind it. Next week, give you another one, give you a couple of thoughts behind it. But this particular podcast, I'm going to give you all 4 angles that we want to tackle this particular topic, and then we will go back and discuss them. Now, the first one that we want to talk about is don't get married if. Number 1, if you're taking notes or you're jotting it down, putting in your tablet or whatever you're doing, okay? It comes in the form of a question. Can you make your spouse the priority in your life? Are you willing to make your spouse, your husband, your wife, are you willing to make them the priority in your life? Now, before you get married, you have to be able to answer this question, okay? If you're going to get married and then a year down the road say, listen, I want to go off to medical school, I'm going to need about 12 years of dedicating myself to education. Now, there has to be something that I believe that you would have to agree upon, because once you get married, that becomes a financial sacrifice, a time sacrifice on the entire household. Can you make your spouse the priority in your life? Do you have time for marriage? Do you have time? Because it requires time. Do you have a plan of making time? Do you have a plan of making time? And if so, when do you plan on doing that? And how will that look when you make that time? These are all questions, in my opinion, that have to be answered before we get married. Don't get married if you are not ready and willing to make your spouse the priority. You get married and now the priority becomes something else in your life and no longer your spouse. And now your time is divided all over the place. That leads to arguments. That leads to problems in the marriage. It leads to decisions that are not made on one accord with one another, because now we are split and our spouse is no longer a priority. And listen, I get it. Sometimes what happens is when we're single, we have so many things going on. We're working on, maybe depending on where you're at in your life, you may be finishing up school. You may be working on buying a house. You may be working on buying a car. You may be trying to start a business. You have all of these avenues that you're doing. And all of those things are cool when you're single. You know why? Because your time belongs to you and the Lord. You have all the free time in the world to do what you want to do. But now we say we want to get married. We want to get into a serious relationship and a serious commitment. Can we make our spouse priority? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do that? And that's the first thing we want to talk about. Let's look at number 2. I'm going to give you the 4 things that we're going to discuss throughout this podcast series. And yes, we're not going to discuss them in great detail tonight. No, we're not. But I want you to at least have them, okay? Number 2, don't get married if. Don't get married if. Comes in the form of a question again. Have you fulfilled your personal dreams and goals that do not require a spouse? Let me say it again. Have you personally fulfilled some of the dreams, some of the goals that you have in your life that do not require a spouse? Have you achieved any of those? And why do I say this? Because oftentimes what happens is we get married and then we start pursuing all these dreams and goals that our spouse had no idea that we had. And if they're not on board, then we feel like they're the problem. Well, you never told them that you had these dreams and goals before you got married. They may have come up in casual conversation, but if they were not in operation and you weren't doing anything, any action toward them, then you get married 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road. Now, all of a sudden, you have all these great dreams and goals you're trying to achieve, and it requires more of your time. And now your spouse is like, well, you don't have time for me. You possibly may have some children. You don't have time for the children. Well, I want to fulfill these goals and dreams, and they've always been on my heart. Well, you wait now 5, 10 years into marriage to do these things? Don't get married if you are still working on fulfilling some of your personal dreams and goals that do not require a spouse, and going back to number 1, that will cause you not to have your spouse be a priority. You say, well, Pastor K, I don't know if I'm ready for marriage, because there's a lot of things I want to do. I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do that. And all of that's cool. But are you ready to do that by yourself? Or possibly maybe you want to do it with a spouse. But is that what they want to do? You see? So many times people get married or they get into serious relationships. And then they realize that, you know what? We don't have much in common. I want to do A, B, C, and D. You want to do E, F, and G. And now we have a problem. And now we have conflict. So we're trying to avoid all of that conflict by making sure that we're ready before we get there. If you have not fulfilled your personal dreams and goals, or some of them, are you willing to adjust them? Well, Pastor K, these are my babies, my passions, my visions, my goals. I don't really want to. Why do I have to adjust them? Well, you don't have to adjust them. Well, don't get married, because sometimes when you get married, you have to adjust things in your life. You have to adjust some priorities that you had while you were single, because the priorities you have when you're single change when you get married. If you haven't fulfilled some of your personal dreams and goals, do you have a time frame when you plan on starting and or completing some of these goals and dreams? Do you have a time frame? You get married, you decide you want to have children, you decide you maybe want to purchase a house, purchase a car, do a little traveling. But your wife says, well, I don't really want to do a lot of traveling right now because I want to go back to grad school. And then the husband's like, grad school? You never told me you want to go to grad school. I thought we were getting ready to travel, and I thought we were getting ready to look at to buy a house. And now the money that we set aside to buy a house or to buy a car or to make some investments, you want to use that money to go back to school? When were you going to tell me? Conflict. Because you have some unfulfilled dreams and some unfulfilled goals that you knew you had while you were single, but you wanted to get married, and you got married. You said yes, or you said I do. You asked the question. They agreed. And now we're writing new chapters that we should have finished when we were single. Don't get married if you haven't fulfilled your plans or your personal dreams and goals. What's your plan? Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? You see, well, Pastor K, I don't know. I don't know how I don't know all my plans. I have a few things I want to accomplish There's some things I desire to do. There's some things that I want to finish. Okay, that's cool. Have you written those things you desire to do down? If you're possibly in a relationship or engaged or in a committed relationship, have you talked about these type of things with your potential spouse so they can be aware of the direction that you're trying to travel? Well, no, I haven't done any of that. Well, do you not agree that it may be fair if you're getting ready to take someone on a lifelong journey that they know where you're going? They know what plans you have. They know some of your dreams and some of your goals. Because what if some of your dreams and some of your goals are to leave and move to another country to get a better experience? And then you bring that up year 2, year 3. Conflict. Don't get married if, number one, again, you're not ready to make your spouse a priority in your life. Number 2, you haven't fulfilled your personal dreams and goals that do not require your spouse. Don't get married if you're trying to work on these things. Now, if you have a partner who's ready and willing to build and you guys grow together, no, that's different. But you have to have that open dialogue, that open conversation so that everyone is on board, everyone is in tune. Okay? Number 3, we got 4. So number 3. Don't get married if, comes in the form of a question again, do you and your potential partner share the same definition of a marriage? Do you guys share the same definition? See, we can't travel this road of marriage, dating, courting, whatever term you want to use, if we have 2 different definitions of marriage. Do you have a definition of marriage? Where did it come from? Did it come from mom? Did it come from dad, grandma, granddad? Did it come from books? Did it come from church? Did it come from social media? Did it come from TV? So often people get into relationships, so often people get married and stay married for years and come to find out that the husband and the wife don't even have the same definition of what a marriage is. Their perspective on marriage is totally different. And they wonder why it's constant conflict. It's not that they're not good people. It's not that they don't come from a good background, come from a good family. It's not that they're not educated. It's not that they don't have a good job. They have good income. They have great children. All of those things are in place. They both love the Lord. But they have 2 different concepts of what they believe marriage to be. Or the woman should be doing A, B, C, and D. The man's supposed to be doing A, B, C, and D. And then vice versa. And then you realize, well, I don't believe like that. Well, neither do I. Now we have a problem. Now we're married. Now we have kids. Now we're looking at divorce. We're looking at separation 10, 15 years down the road because our definition of marriage never lined up this entire time. You see? Do you have a definition of marriage? Where did it come from? Where did it come from? Don't get married if. Now, before I go into our last angle here of addressing this particular topic, I saw a post on social media, and it was asking a question to men primarily, but there were a lot of women who were answering the post. And the question was, what does a side chick bring to the table that your main girl or spouse doesn't? And do you know some of the overwhelming answers to that particular question was peace? Now, I think that's a trash excuse. Obviously, I don't agree with the side chick or side dude mentality, but it has to be addressed because it happens all the time. But so many men claim their claim to having a side chick is because they bring peace. So that brings us to our angle number 4. Are you willing to strive for peace during the ups and downs? Are you willing to do that? If you're unwilling to strive for peace through the ups and downs, marriage is going to be very difficult, because there are certainly going to be some ups and some downs. All right, guys. So next week, we're going to get into this. We're going to get into our number one, making a spouse, or can you make your spouse a priority? We want to get into that. So with my closing thought tonight, listen, if you're not married, it's cool. Don't feel bad. Don't feel pressure. But before you get married, let's take a look at some of these items, because I want your marriage to survive the test of time. If you're married, it's cool. You're already in the bag now. But can you make it better? Can we all grow? Absolutely. We all can grow. All right? Thank you guys for streaming the Faith Unbuttoned podcast. Until we chat again next week, I love you. Don't forget to tune in to us this Sunday. We're moving into a new part of our series, Kingdom Love. Kingdom Love. So join us this Sunday streaming on our YouTube channel at 10 a.m. at Never Alone Christian Center. Let's go.